Die. Let me exit and then sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, no problem.
Sorry, it's gonna mess it up if I don't.
Go.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, sorry, just wanted to get the headphones off.
Wait a minute. Hold.
We got more coming.
Oh, there it is. No, I got two screens open. Now I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Hida.
Oh, hey, we already got people incoming, huh? That's great. Trying to find the live stream. Okay, I think I found it.
Boom.
So Hida's already here. That's great. I think we have Josh.
Oh yeah, we're getting into the holidays, so we're gonna have some weeks we're not gonna be doing the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
I posted a schedule to you guys. I'll post it to everybody else, and then going forward, I think I'll do it a month at a time, so everybody knows. Because it's been pretty much, hey, if people can show up. If they can't, they can't. And
yeah,
I think I'll do it a month at a time and see how that goes, Anthony.
Yeah, you're going to make the StreamYard links ahead of time. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Now I think
yeah.
Going forward to 2026, so the public shows up for the live call. They want to know where everybody's at, and I think we got to give them a schedule and see what we can do.
So you're going to
Hida, please ask a question.
Or radar. Be traveling for a month, huh?
Yeah, going around. Nothing neuro nudish, but
hey.
But I do want to go. I'm going to head out to Germany.
Oh wow!
See what's going on over there. See the true Kris Kringle there, and get some pretzel.
My family's actually in Austria right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So sent me pictures of the food just today, actually. So that's probably a fun time.
Was it a sausage, a pretzel, a beer?
It was a schnitzel.
Yeah. Schnitzel.
It was a very crisp, perfect looking schnitzel. Yeah.
Fried, beautiful.
Yeah. Is that your heritage, or are you going there for another reason?
No, it's I'm going to go see a concert out there.
Oh, what's that?
Radiohead. They don't play in the States a lot. So
that's right. You're a big music guy. Yeah, Radiohead is good.
It's an acquired taste, just like me, Anthony.
In my opinion, that's like the last good rock band that was created.
Original. They influenced a lot. Well, when you're old, you can influence a lot. Like Jahan here, we're influencing. Could we one more time go over auto thresholding for home users? I hear different opinions.
Yeah,
we need Joshua if he's over his.
Well, I remember, because this has come up a lot. Jahan, Josh said that there is a study that shows that auto thresholding may be the #1 reason for neurofeedback clinical trial failure. Meaning it caused problems, messed up the results. People didn't get a therapeutic benefit from the treatment. Now, I've seen home users get benefit using auto thresholding. So maybe it's not everybody, but maybe it messes up, half of people's results or compromises their results. So maybe it could be a trial and error thing for that person, but we can definitely ask Josh when he gets back on here. But and Josh is not. Alex Sanchez in Orlando. He also tells me that he's not a fan of auto thresholding, that he's seen it cause problems for people.
Well, this is a lucky day. Jay's trying to get in the room. I can't get. Says his device is not connected.
Uh-oh.
Here, I'm going to kick him. Jay,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you.
Yeah. Hida, I think, is it Hida? Hida has a question there that about SMR in children, and I think it is lower Hida, but that can be, again, a trial and error approach somewhat. But they talk about SMR in 8-year-old children often starts around 9 to 12 hertz. So that's from braintrainer.com. So, we can ask Josh again, but it could probably be based on, are you getting the result you want? Because it's not unless you do it a lot, it's not usually end of the world if you get frequencies wrong, unless you're doing this for many appointments. Yeah. Hida says, my experience with auto thresholding is when you move too much, it messes it up. So there you go. That could be another problem with it, or the key problem, perhaps. We'll see what Josh says.
Or Dave, we can get him in the room.
Yeah. So she's saying auto thresholding is bad for kids because they move around, I'm assuming.
Oh, here's Joshua.
There he is.
Joshua, how you feeling, man?
Hey.
He feels that much better.
Oh,
Hi there.
glad
I'm
you're
still
feeling
recovering.
better, man.
I'm still recovering. I probably like I thought I should cancel today, but I'm feeling better than I should feel.
Uh-oh.
Hey, man, you can Irish goodbye anytime you want, Joshua. You know the deal here.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
they
not
got
that
pent-up
taxing,
demand.
and that's why I decided to show up. It's like I'm having a weird response to the antibiotics and I can't sleep, which is typical for me. That's pretty normal for me.
Oh, yeah.
So-
You know that a lot of antibiotics block GABA receptors?
That is what it feels like. That's
They
exactly what it feels
frequently
like.
cause anxiety for the same yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but
Yeah,
you can look
I
that up.
don't experience that anxiety. I just get insomnia. Like I literally do not have an anxiety circuit in my brain. I don't experience, how do I say this? I do not interpret energy as anxiety, which is a convenient thing. I think Jay Gunkelman has the same problem,
That's from the midline frontal theta is what Jay says.
Yeah, I might have something similar. I need to look at my own brainwaves more carefully. I've never had anxiety. Likely not in the last 20 years. I have not had anxiety. So
Yeah.
Anthony, can we catch Joshua up? Because we got a lot of orders in the kitchen here.
Yeah.
Starting
The
with-
Hida was asking, well, it was Jahan.
Mhm.
I keep hearing differing opinions. What do we think about auto thresholding for home users? I'm guessing for remote training he's talking about.
yeah.
And then
that is a tough question, and there's actually a few answers to it that need to be addressed, and there's some citations. When I do classes, I actually cover the citations, the meta-analysis on auto thresholding. If Jay's here, he can talk about this too.
Yeah, there we go.
So my concern with auto thresholding that's not managed by a person is that you have aggressive auto thresholding, and then you have dampened auto thresholding, and both have deep flaws when they're not being managed by a person. I prefer fixed thresholding, and it's a steep compromise when you accept either one of those models of aggressive auto thresholding or dampened auto thresholding. So auto thresholding, let's say you're adjusting frontal midline theta. It's going to catch the frontal midline theta, but then when the frontal midline theta is gone, it's going to aggressively go down and start training the noise. And that's not what you want to train. And so you're going to be getting mixed signals about what is of use to the brain and what isn't. And it's going to be contaminating that which is useful with that which isn't. If you use an aggressive dampener and then you have artifact, it's going to throw that threshold off, and you're going to lose a lot of training time whenever there's artifact. And so you have very, very deep flaws with either model. And there is meta-analysis showing that failed double-blind studies can be associated to auto thresholding. So, I mean, that makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, Pete,
Yes.
you've seen people in track and field. If the coach dropped the bar a little bit every time you couldn't quite make it, do you think you'd get any good?
Could be.
you've got to achieve an absolute threshold, and above that, you're progressing. But if you keep dropping the threshold every time somebody doesn't succeed, just to give them some success, you're not really training them up in that respect. Your auto thresholding can be a coach that drops the bar because you didn't make it, and you're never going to learn. And again, published studies have been critiqued for their use of auto thresholding, I think appropriately. And again, I think Joshua already described the various kinds, aggressive or not aggressive.
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. There are some home systems that do fixed thresholding, and I know because I partnered with those companies and helped them figure out how to create home fixed thresholding. I still prefer in-clinic work, but sometimes some neurofeedback is better than no neurofeedback, and that's why I helped. So,
how important is it to see an increase in the train frequency in the session between sessions, or is it just a clinical effect we're looking for?
Depends on what you're training.
Oh no, somebody asking a good question. When you're training, you're not just training something up. You're usually suppressing some slow transients that are problematic. You're training up, for instance, SMR or beta, and you're suppressing maybe faster beta that might be muscle. So you're going to be looking for a learning curve across time. Hopefully within session you may see some improvement, but what you're going to see is a lot of variability, and across time the variability is going to decrease, and if something's being trained up, the variability is going to variable increase to the maximum that it can be produced. You can't make SMR big. SMR is always going to inherit. It's a small little thing. You can make more of it, and training it up doesn't make it big. It makes it more dense in time, more bursts per second. Midgets will be midgets, but you can fill a room with them, and that's a lot of midgets. So what we're talking about is a lot of a very, very small rhythm, and when you make a whole bunch of it, it's really quite obvious the room is full, and you look at quantitative EEG looks at magnitude, the average over time. And if you're just one here and one there, you don't average up. But when you have a whole bunch of them, you average up. So when you look at the amplitude, for instance, of beta, it's not going to, real rhythmic beta is not going to get really big. In fact, you're probably trying to suppress it. Anyway, there's things that you're going to have to track across time, and the suppressed bands are quite often more important than the size of the SMR. The fact that the slower content stabilized, and you're going to see more change in the paroxysmal slow activity than suddenly a gigantic SMR. Again, inherently small stuff won't get big, but be more of it. It's a stabilizing rhythm. It's like a weighted blanket that stabilizes things, but it's not going to get big.
Can I ask a leading question?
That's one right there.
what if you were training alpha?
Training alpha up or down? You see some people have good success training it down.
They're both interesting. They're both interesting.
So alpha training has a fifth order learning curve. If you're alpha deficient, it's going to take longer across time, but the shape of the learning curve is going to be similar. The fifth order learning curve was identified in the PhD dissertation in 1974, James V. Hart out of Kamiya's lab. And I helped look at the data for his dissertation back then. Rode motorcycle from North Dakota out to California for a little bit of time off, and hung out at Kamiya's lab a bit, and got a look at some of that data. Anyway, the learning curve fits the clinical population back at the state hospital. Instead of 3-4 hours. In a healthy person, it was like 14 hours for a clinical case. So, but the same fifth order learning curve. And you basically learn to suppress aberrant muscle and movement, and stabilize what you're doing and so forth, just like everybody does in training. But you literally will learn to increase the magnitude of the alpha. Alpha is essentially the synchrony or summation of thousands and thousands and thousands of cells all firing in unison. And if you get some firing in unison and some not, the size of the alpha is attenuated some, and you might get a couple of different frequencies competing for alpha. You might actually see a couple of peaks in the alpha bin in the spectrum. That's variability. And variability is a good thing, but it's nice to have a center frequency kind of selected, hopefully a good center frequency selected. It's your basic sampling rate, your alpha frequency packets perception. In fact, when the alpha hits its depth, the dip, electropositive dip, momentarily perception is turned off. And that's pretty hard to believe, because you perceive things like they're continuous. Where's this sudden dip that turns off? Tachistoscopically presented information can be timed for the dip, and if you do that, you can miss some of the tachistoscopically projected. If you're in the negative half wave, boy, the thalamic gate's wide open, but the thalamus shuts the gate momentarily just at the dip, and then the next packet. If you happen to occur within 75 to 100 milliseconds of each other, things are perceived as having happened instantaneously, and you packet things together. Random XY plotted points in time and space would pop up, and they're random. But if you turn on music, it looks like they're timed to the music. It looks like there's somebody there exactly timing it, but it's your stream of perception packeting information, and you perceive it as time together, but it's still random space and time.
Boy, we got a lot of orders backed up here. Is cortex hyperexcitability related to inflammation at all?
It can be. Hyperexcitability can happen in seizure focus. It's not a good kind of hyperexcitability. You can have a beta spindle that's hyperexcitable cortex that's there even when the discharges aren't happening, and it's easily kindled cortex. And that's basically the background beta excitability in the EEG. If there's an inflammatory process, let's say you have a viral encephalopathy, you have a viral invasion of the brain, you're going to have a huge amount of beta. That hyperexcitability is there because of mitochondrial war, and that's not a good kind of beta. That's inflammatory, and beta spindles that are seen in viral encephalopathies. So there's a lot of different kinds of beta. You can have periodic anterior fast activity in Pick's disease, which is a form of dementia. You have bursts of beta that happen as the name periodic. They happen with timing between the bursts. There'll be a burst of it, a few seconds with none, and then another burst, and another few seconds with none, and another burst. It'll look almost like it has a timing. And that's really not a good kind of beta at all. If you look at the MRI, you see atrophy of the frontal lobes associated with that. And Pick's disease is a frontotemporal dementia, one of the various kinds of frontotemporal dementia.
To the point about can inflammation cause hyperexcitability of the cortex, there is a paper, not recommending it, but there's a paper that says that Ozempic or semaglutide, it reduces seizure severity by reducing inflammation. since we're on the beta topic, there is a question here that just came in from I'm an artichoke. It says, is there any evidence for photobiomodulation affecting spindling beta? And I've been wondering about that myself.
40 hertz.
You just think it's the pulse frequency?
Well, if you're dealing with inflammatory beta, then 40 hertz is got the research.
Okay. Yeah.
And 40 hertz can be healthy or it can be pathology. Healthy gamma occurs nested in a carrier frequency. It'll be a burst of gamma in the negative half wave of the theta wave. So you get 6 bursts of gamma in a second. And you'll see that frontally in motor tasks, for instance. And not only do you get 40 hertz, but you get gamma 2, 80 to 100, and ripples 150, 200 hertz. So all that fast stuff happens rhythmically in the negative half wave of the theta. If you're in a perceptual area, the negative half wave of alpha will contain that burst of gamma. But if you have persistent gamma, that's pathology. Persistent gamma is seen in the atrophy in the temporal area in Alzheimer's. It's seen in seizure focuses. It's seen in lesions, out lesions. Persistent gamma is not good at all.
When I read The Angel and the Assassin, Jay, they were still using 40 hertz stim therapy on Alzheimer's cases with success. And they were actually doing subcranial implants for LEDs, which is so it's not a visual effect, it's an actual cell effect, and this is interesting. But they have these weird lights, you don't want to
with light and sound. Yeah.
For anybody that had a convulsion in the audience, we really apologize.
Sorry, my bad. Well, I think the rule is you don't want to look at it for more than an hour a day. Yeah.
But usually a flash evoked seizure doesn't happen at 40 hertz necessarily. It's usually a lower frequency, going down a row of trees as they go by. As they say, the sunflower effect. You look at the bright light through the flickering of the fingers and induce a seizure. That was a big thing for kids to try. Get a natural buzz. But there are people that have photic flash induced seizures because of that sunflower effect thing. That was a YouTube or a TikTok or whatever there is out there. I barely know how to do these.
What about excess HB in children on right frontal versus left frontal? What could be the causes? What's HB?
Probably high beta.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
If you're looking at beta frequencies that are in excess, usually you see them frontocentrally. The central beta spindle is insomnia. The frontal stuff is more impulsivity, hyperactivity. And in kids who have that, they usually can get it controlled with the use of guanfacine or with neurofeedback to modulate down that fast activity and stabilize them, usually with some SMR to counteract the hyperexcitable cortex. But if you see it frontally only, it's and not at the vertex at all. It's just frontal excitability and it's skewed to the right. That pattern in somebody who's not just a child is usually going to be seen as somebody who's considered bipolar. And if you got them before they've started to cycle, they don't have the diagnosis, and they may simply be diagnosed as an ADD, ADHD. But the diagnosis is worthless. So don't worry about the diagnosis. Worry about the prognosis and what can be done to optimize function. That's really the question. Diagnosis.
When you map families, you'll have a kid with have an adult kid with bipolar, and then you'll see that the mom has the same frontal beta spindles, and she's only complaining about attention issues or something. And it's like, okay, they have the same, phenotype finding, they have the same neuromarkers. One has this activated disorder that gives them a DSM diagnosis, and the other one just gets something else like attention issues. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
but it came from the family,
Yeah. And phenotypes or endophenotypes are genetically linked EEG patterns, and beta spindles are one of those endophenotypes, which I wrote about in 2005. One of the and we identified 11, 9 of which were candidate for being phenotypic that didn't know the genetics at the time. We suggest that they were phenotypic. We just didn't know the genetics. Now they know the genetics. So all of those were in fact endophenotypic.
How common is leptiform activity? My understanding is that a lot of people have subclinical epilepsy but don't experience seizures.
You can have an epileptiform discharge in the brain and not involve the motor strip at all, and it's not going to be a seizure. But they could be pseudobulbar affect, where the discharge influenced the amygdala and hippocampus, and the person's having a rage event or out of control emotion, and that's a temporal lobe seizure discharge without a convulsion at all. You can have a frontal lobe discharge that disturbs your attentional, focus. You can be unable to track because of discharges up front that may not be full-blown absence epilepsy, but just transients that happen. We were doing a workshop together, Yuri Kropotov and I, in Australia, and this was the 2 days of ERP. And the first thing they do is basically recording somebody in the audience to get data so that they can show how to process it and analyze it. And this, ERP is a kind of a high-end topic in 1999, and the audience included neurologists and psychiatrists, and one of the neurologists volunteered to be the person doing the ERP testing. So he sat in front of a screen and had to respond by clicking on a mouse, a go no go test, and you get a CPT, omissions and commissions and reaction time and all of that data. And it's a boring test. I left the room to catch on up on my texting back to the US and stuff, and answered a couple of emails real fast. And I came back in, and they were unhooking them, and we're going to analyze the data. And as they start to scroll across the screen, I said, oh look back, there's a discharge left frontally, epileptiform. And this is a neurologist. And he says, oh, I'm surprised anybody saw it. Like, I'm not going to see it. Give me a break. I've seen too many of these to miss one. It's like seeing your grandma go by. Hey, grandma. So you can't miss them. But he said it's meaningless. It's an interesting theory. This is a neurologist saying that the EEG discharge is meaningless. What a fool. We just did a 20-minute study. He had 2 omission errors, no commission errors, good reaction time, low variability. He's a neurologist. Of course, he's going to have a good performance. The 2 omissions happened when 2 discharges happened. Now you tell me that discharge is meaningless. We have data that shows you have a brain fart when that happens. There's no stream of consciousness when it's taken away at that moment. So you missed that. You got everything else, but the 2 times you missed were when that discharge that's meaningless happened. It changed your opinion about the EEG discharges being meaningless. They may be subclinical, meaning you don't have a seizure or you don't have any overt measurable thing, but if you're measuring the right thing, you probably will see it. Anyway, there are a lot of discharges that are out there. A third of the ADD, ADHD kids approximately have epileptiform discharges. 70%, maybe more, of the autism spectrum have epileptiform content. In anxiety, it's only 12%, but the background population is 3%. So that's a 400% increase above background. But if they have panic, then it's up to 30%.
There,
So,
okay.
you know, if you have mood problems, is 3%. You know, you got a mood problem. You know, no big likelihood of seizure. If the mood doesn't make sense, pseudobulbar affect, 30% or more. So, you know, it's not uncommon in clinical populations, and if you don't look, you don't know it's there. A client of mine that focuses on autism in Washington State, the insurance companies have to cover autism and pay. And he asked for coverage, and the intermediary basically said, no, we're this year we're paying for this kind of therapy, and it wouldn't cover the EEG, QEEG to be recorded. And a year later, he resubmitted, and I guess they were just tired of him or something. They said, okay, it's not that expensive anyway, you know, and non-invasive tests, not that expensive. They see epileptiform discharges. They make a recommendation for the right medication. He's off the spectrum.
Yeah.
Now, next time he goes to that case manager, he gets clearance like that to do this test because it worked. How many therapies end up having that kind of success? In psychiatric practice, we published 85% of the time people that have epileptiform content in their psychiatric diagnostic category, and they've never had a seizure. 85% of the time they get better with an anticonvulsant. Not better because they don't have more seizures, because they didn't have them in the first place. But their psychiatric disturbance becomes less diagnosable and less severe when the brain is stabilized. So, you know, it's good to stabilize those discharges. And we show 85% clinical success. A neurologist seeing the psychiatric patient with no seizure would say, we don't give you an anticonvulsant. That's denial of care. 85% probability of success. What fools.
Yep.
What about high beta when it's higher in kids at F4 versus F3? What could be the causes of that?
More activity right frontally. It may happen for only a moment, and it might shift to the other side for a moment, and on average, it might be bigger on one side. Look at the dynamics before you declare it asymmetric. Quite often, the asymmetry is an averaged value, and you'll see the dynamics are active on both sides. Beta spindles that are spindles up front, 18 hertz, 25 hertz in that range, are usually easily accommodated with neurofeedback, and they usually respond to guanfacine to reduce the beta. It reduces norepinephrine, which is the part of the production of the beta.
Jay, I understand you to be saying that we can't increase the amplitude of SMR, but is there a way to measure the density of SMR in the stream?
Yeah. Quantitative analysis. You know, if you measure the size of it instantaneously on the waveform as it goes by, if you stop the EEG and measure how big it is, it's only small. But as it goes by, there's more packets of it. So if you average across time, and EEG does instantaneous measurements of amplitude, the QEEG doesn't give you an amplitude measurement, it gives you a magnitude measurement, the integral average, and you average it across time. So if SMR is happening more bursts per second, it'll look like there's more midgets in that room, and the QEEG shows a bigger value.
Any evidence for TPBM affecting spindling beta?
We did that one, yeah.
We got that one?
Yeah.
All right, moving down the kitchen. So convulsions are always caused by discharges on the central strip, and if it's not on the central strip, then it won't cause seizures? Question mark.
You can have convulsions for lots of other reasons than epilepsy. So you know, you can have a convulsion because you had a heart stoppage, and the hypoxia created a glutamate cascade, and the hyperexcitability got you, and you had a seizure. But it was because of a cardiogenic seizure. You could have a metabolic or a viral encephalopathy that causes a seizure, as opposed to having an underlying epileptiform lesion or discharge. So,
but you still probably would see that in the motor strip ultimately, right? Like that glutamate would cause it, maybe.
Glutamate's a big piece of it, but it's not the only thing. As an example of how important it is, Lamictal, which is really quite effective in epilepsy, is a glutamate modulator. That's its method of action. Okay, if you want to dial down hyperexcitability, some of the anticonvulsants are very, very good at it.
We were told our EEG discharge was abnormal activity, and it happens with kids ASD, and not to be worried about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you should worry. But if you have a discharge in the EEG, it's going to be something that isn't necessarily healthy for function, and you don't have to worry about it. You can fix it with training. The brain responds like muscles do in the gym, with a bit of training. Let's say the discharge is in the right temporal area, and the person's presenting with an Asperger's like presentation. Well, and that term isn't even in the DSM-5. That how I'm old DSM-4 still, but a social perceptual deficit of some sort, and that's a right temporal discharge would do that. And if you get rid of that discharge, the return of function to the area, it's not like the area is missing, it's just not functioning because just of the electrical disturbance. So get rid of the discharges and the function comes back.
I had a conversation with a doctor who was really angry with me a couple of years ago. Called and he was upset. He didn't like that I was, humping people who had, these findings, and he thought that I was inducing anxiety and fear in clients on things that didn't matter. And we were in a very unproductive conversation for a while, until at one point I said, would you be totally comfortable if your kids had these neuromarkers? And he got really quiet and he sighed and he said no. And then the conversation got very generous after that.
Nice.
And it's like, I think you got to stop and slow down. We got to think a little bit about this.
Yeah.
But his attitude totally changed after I asked that question.
Somebody introduced me to the term, Jay, SIGINEC for frontal midline theta. It's a term that's used after somebody who characterized it. And I looked it up because I hadn't found that. And I found a page on Medscape, and they said, SIGINEC, which is like 4 to 7 hertz, whatever, and other abnormal EEG rhythms have been found, but are determined to be insignificant. And I'm just like, what? And this is Medscape is for medical doctors. I'm just like, if you think about it, it would almost be strange.
The EEGs
didn't mean
EEGs only for epilepsy and encephalopathy.
Exactly, and that's what they meant. It had no bearing on their seizure activity. Yeah. Go on.
But psychiatry has been bullied out of EEG, and that happened in the 60s and 70s, and it was a mistake. And the Gibbs and Gibbs have a nice publication going over all these patterns that are now controversial patterns, but they weren't really controversial. What they are is they're seen in some epileptics, but they're also seen in some that are non-epileptic. They're psychiatric. And because there was a push towards being diagnostically specific, which gets you nothing, the fact that they were seen in non-convulsing people as well meant that they couldn't be used diagnostically. Well, if you see the discharge, you know that they're going to probably respond to an anticonvulsant, and you know where to train with neurofeedback, but it's not like you don't have treatment options. But if you don't look, you don't know. And unfortunately, too many people just don't look.
I mean, this is the highest order measurement of brain function that we have. so it would almost be odd if the patterns didn't mean something. I mean, what is the EEG then? You know.
So for years now, I would show up in Europe. I wouldn't bring a prepared lecture of any sort, none.
Okay.
And I would walk in, and they would hand me 6 EEGs and the age of the patient, and that's it. I would go through the EEG, de-artifact it, show what I saw in the spectra, do any source localization, and describe what the patient was like psychiatrically. And when I was done with this high wire act with no net, I would say, okay, this was somebody's patient. What did I get? What did I miss? You know, systems self-regulate with some feedback. Give me some feedback. And what we found is that the EEG gave a description in a depth consistently accurately. And if I'm calling out OCD, they have OCD. If I'm suggesting they have an affective regulatory problem and their alpha is way fast and it's on the right side, probably anxiety. It's anxiety. You know, the phenotypic patterns predict the psychiatric presentation so accurately you can read the EEG like a neuropsych eval, only it has some face validity at least. You know, a lot of paper and pencil testing end up being validated, but the EEG ends up cutting through a lot of the diagnostic chaff and actually shows you the pathophysiology. And ultimately, that's what leads to your success clinically, is knowing what the pathophysiology is. The diagnosis doesn't tell you what to do.
So if a third of the people with ADHD have epileptiform discharges, would their ability to concentrate improve with anticonvulsants?
If they've matched with the right anticonvulsant and or neurofeedback. You don't necessarily have to give a medication for it. If they're not having a seizure and they're having discharges, you can train it down with neurofeedback. But the patient should have the choice. You know, as a therapist, you're supposed to give them the Whitman sampler with the back of the chocolates all poked out so they get to pick their therapy from whatever they want. You know, if they don't like maple, they don't eat maple, you know, but you have to show them the options. And one of the options would be, you know, your kid's got epileptiform discharges in the EEG, and they may respond to an anticonvulsant, and they could do neurofeedback and that.
Yeah.
So this quote is a retrospective. This is basically looking at patients. Every single patient in this study was one I did a report on.
Wow.
And this is looking back in time. And looking back in time retrospectively in patients that didn't have seizures and the ones that had epileptiform discharges, which, you know, this is the paper that showed 85% success.
That's huge.
So,
Wow.
85% success is huge in mental health. You don't see that in mental health ever.
And there's a paper specifically, I just Googled it, Radar, that there's a Brazilian study that used anticonvulsants in ADHD patients, and I think they got a significant improvement.
I would like to see that.
I'll see if I can post the title for you. What's up?
Oh, if you have that, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
It would probably successfully treat both the discharge EEG patterns as well as the beta spindle patterns. So there's a percentage of the ADD ADHD population have beta spindles as their biomarker of the frontal disturbance. They may have slow, they may have alpha combined with it, but they may have beta spindles as a pure type. About 10% of the ADD ADHD population sampled out of a group of about 400 were a pure beta spindle type. Another 10% mixed with either alpha or theta as a comorbid frontal pattern. But an anticonvulsant would usually treat the beta spindle variety as well as any of these epileptiform folks. So there's a percentage that would be benefited, but why give it to everybody based on the DSM? If you want to target it with the EEG. If they have epileptiform discharges, give them the anticonvulsant. If they don't, why give them an anticonvulsant? There's a potential side effect that you don't want, and you don't have to give them that potential side effect if there's no potential benefit.
All right. A family member, 11 years old, has autism. I had asked about how to find a good practitioner in Georgia. You said a couple of things, but I don't understand what QEEG plus white matter focus means.
Okay. Well, obviously QEEG is just quantitative EEG. EEG is the measurement of the EEG's electrical activity. QEEG is the digital analysis of it and running it through algorithms and coming up with Z-scores and maps and things like that. And if you have a white matter problem in the EEG, there's usually a delta in the area. Delta is generated in the cortex when there's not a white matter input. So if you have a white matter lesion, or if the white matter wasn't fully developed during a developmental period, you can have a delta a focus or a delta in an area. You can get a delta focus from a head trauma. You can get a delta focus from an infection, lots of different etiologies, but a slow focus is not a good thing. This is a great one. There were actually two that Beauregard did that showed gray matter and white matter change with neurofeedback, and it still just sink through my thick skull that white matter could be fixed with neurofeedback. And I always thought of it as kind of the hardwire wiring, and you could change the neural network properties of alpha and beta and all those, but good luck with the delta. And it wasn't until I saw Dr. Pineda's work with the NIH work on autism, where they did DTI imaging. The diffusion tensor imaging shows the white matter, and the white matter was sculpted by the neurofeedback. The area that was being trained with the neurofeedback, the white matter was dramatically improved. When you get rid of the slow content in the EEG, something has to have innervated that cortex. I mean, it doesn't go away magically. You have to have created an input to the cortex to make that delta go away. Anyway, that's getting pretty deep into the pathophysiology of it all, I guess. So,
since MS affects the brain's white matter, could neurofeedback be helpful, and would an EEG be necessary in this case?
MS not only influences the brain's white matter, but also spinal. And initially, it was thought of as a movement disorder, basically just a motor neuron problem. But the white matter changes happen kind of like somebody with a dart that doesn't know how to play darts, throwing randomly at a wall. I mean, you can get a lesion in a lot of different areas. Your immune system can attack your brain, and MS ends up having an association with earlier life viral infections and things like that. But it's not the virus that gets you, it's your immune system having been false triggered. And an autoimmune attack on your myelin will strip myelin away, and that demyelination can be MS, but it can also be other things, Guillain-Barré, which is an autoimmune issue. And there's a lot of kinds of autoimmune problems that can happen. If you have an autoimmune antibody against your thyroid, you'd think, well, so what's that going to do? You get frontal alpha. It mimics depression. I actually did EEG analysis on a group that was exposed to toxic material, and when they had autoimmune markers for thyroid, we had frontal alpha as the correlate. If it had autoimmune biomarker against myelin, delta was the correlate. And the ones who had autoimmune markers against myelin had cognitive impacts that were debilitating. One fellow was a bank branch manager, and he couldn't even add anything, and he lost all real ability to function. He's retired. He sells real estate in Florida. Apparently, there's a lot of turnover. So, real estate agents sometimes make some good money even when the markets aren't so good.
So I should look for a provider who is BCIA certified, trained in Jay's phenotype, and QEEG and white matter? Question mark.
It's not Jay's phenotypes. I had 2 co-authors, for God's sakes, and it's a basic neuroscience thing. I would just as soon not have it personified as me.
They're parroting me, Jay. I called it Gunkelman's phenotypes to them. So I apologize, Tori. Continue.
We do love
okay.
Joy Cameron sometimes.
It's okay. I'll get you later.
There's other good people involved, but he's also very humble, Tori. But continue, Jay. Sorry.
BCIA certified is an important one. If they are QEG certified, you can be QEG T as a tech without a license to do something, but like you can get a QEG D as a diplomate, and if you have a license, it's a DL. And I'm the first QEG D emeritus, so I'm retired for the first one. And I don't know if you saw, but the QEG certification board did this.
What we got there?
The Godfather.
Godfather
Wow.
QEG. So, and they made T-shirts and hats, and they brought them to Sassoon.
Nice.
So, anyway, I don't even have a tuxedo, So I'll kind of be a godfather,
One's in the mail. It's a sweatsuit. Jay, I got a question. Since nobody else is asking a question, we're getting towards the end of the show here, and maybe we'll carry this one over to tomorrow's show, Jay. But I was doing a little research on something else, and I brought this up before, and I'm bringing it up again. You got into neurofeedback in 72 or so, early 70s. You're building your
that's when we had our lab. I mean, I was into the signals and stuff in the late 60s. The best of my memory. The 60s are a little fuzzy,
Well, you were building your armoires that were called amplifiers. Back then, I was just looking, like, I'm in Illinois, and I was just looking at mental health budgets, and there was about 30,000 mental health beds back in the 70s, and there's about 1,400 now. Insert AI, insert number here, but it's less than then.
Yeah.
What happened from your day to now that there isn't any place for people with mental health issues to go get a bed?
In 1972, when we started the lab, there were 2,500 or 2,700 people in the state hospital in North Dakota. Now, North Dakota is not a big state. There's 650,000 people in the whole state. So, proportionally, this, put it to California, that'd be a huge population if you had proportionately the same number of people in a state institution. And Reagan was famous for having just basically thrown everybody out of the state hospital. If you weren't of an immediate threat to yourself or others, they couldn't keep you. And that was what depopulated the state institutions. If there were people that were, potentially hazardous to themselves or others, and they would be kept in, but a lot of people had to be discharged.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a couple other ones here.
1975, when we left to go to California, the state hospital was down to 700. They got the gold award, the cream of the crud, the best depopulation you could do They actually found halfway houses and small care facilities or family or somebody to take people. And all the people that were sent out actually weren't just put onto the street. California had the old method of just throwing them out without necessarily finding spots for them all. And that didn't go so well.
All right, we got Lynn's brain. If an EEG of a TBI client has a site of the hit completely all negative Z-scores and just a jaggery line, could a neurologist or one of our ilk say it's TBI?
You don't diagnose the head trauma. You diagnose the brain injury. So if they had a head trauma, they had a head trauma. You can tell if they had head trauma. If your question is, did they have a brain injury, you can look to the EEG for guidance. If there's white matter injury, there's alteration of alpha and beta in the area. If there's white matter injury, there's increases in delta in the area. And the QEEG is very good at identifying that. However, diagnostically, you'll probably not get a neurologist to use the EEG for head trauma because it's been a very controversial application. The 1975 position paper by the American Academy of Neurology, generally against QEEG for head injury, was actually refuted by the American Academy of Neurology. You can't refer to that paper as a scientific quote of any sort. You can only refer to it as a historic document. All the neuroscience claims within it have been pulled back. They don't stand behind any of that anymore.
Last one. Go ahead, Jay. Finish up.
The QEEG is much more well accepted now. However, neurology, it's going to take time. Standards of practice shift like glaciers, and if everybody in med school today was being taught about EEG, QEEG, and head trauma so that they were competent and they left med school fully competent, they'd be a junior practitioner somewhere and they couldn't do what they wanted to do. They'd be under somebody and there'd be a decision tree of things they could do, and you're pretty limited as a rookie. And very few people are in self-practice anymore. It would take a decade to penetrate practice from knowledge being taught, and it's unfortunate, but that's just how things shift.
All right, last one. We're going to shut off the pizza ovens. Coffee Madka Karutina, say that 3 times fast. MS sometimes sounds a bit similar to autism in adults, especially when it comes to things like white matter and demyelination. I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Well, in autism, white matter is basically a problem during the developmental trajectory. Your nervous system is in development, and the white matter tracks that you have as an adult have to be wrapped in myelin. And depending upon the diameter of the neuron that's being wrapped, it needs between 10 and 100 layers. And if you put on too many layers, you turn it off. If you put on not enough, you don't really insulate it well enough for it to be a high-speed connection, so it's not really an effective input. So in autism, that developmental trajectory either overdoes it or underdoes it, but it doesn't do it right.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. As we can see, you can train the brain and change the white matter as well. The brain is astoundingly neuroplastic. MS is white matter lesions from autoimmune attacking, and it's an unfortunate progressive demyelinating disorder. If you're under a lot of stress, it seems to stress changes your cortisol level. And your cortisol level going up would normally suppress your immune system, but your autoimmune system isn't the kind of immune system that it suppresses. you're just going to suffer the strain of stress. It's not going to help get rid of the autoimmune problem. It goes under the radar. So.
Anthony, I lied. Can you take these last two, see if you can put them together and see if we can squeeze the last bit of toothpaste out of Jay Gunkelman?
Well, real quick to Coffee's point is that Googling here, there is a 10-fold increased incidence of ASD among multiple sclerosis patients in one paper. So it seems like and it says they share neuropathological mechanisms like demyelination. All right, now I'm going to find these two questions. Okay, Hita asked, Jay, can you please explain mast cell activation on an EEG and possible connection to seizures? And then Radar asked, can you increase intelligence by increasing white matter tracks between parietal and frontal? So those are the last two, guys.
Well, if intelligence was real, you could measure something called intelligence, and but it's just an operational definition, and they'll say that your intelligence is something that's stable and fixed, and there's only a certain amount of variability based on the measurement. That's you might gain a couple of points. We did neurofeedback on 30 people that had addiction. Their GIA, Woodcock-Johnson GIA, is their equivalent of IQ, general intelligence, basically. And their GIA was 99 just at their baseline, normal. These are standard scores, like a sort of 100 on a standard score, that normal as can be. They ended with a 120. Now, that's not within that range of variability. That's a leap beyond what people will believe possible if they believe in IQ. IQ isn't like your eye color. You can perform better if you optimize brain function. Let's say it's semantic and declarative memory. I learned some stuff. I know it's in there somewhere. I got to access it. My ability to name things, semantic declarative memory. That's a bush, that's a tree, that's a chair, whatever, naming things and so forth. Well, you have to have a fund of knowledge and then pull it out to do that. Semantic and declarative memory is improved with your alpha frequency tuning appropriately. If it was slow and you speed it up, you have a better performance. Yeah, there's your that's the study with the 21-point IQ jump, but it also showed across every other standard score there was a jump, really significant, generally about 20 points. The one that was really astounding was a horrible initial score on delayed recall. This is if you were president and you went in to have your cognitive function tested, they might give you something that you had to remember, and 30 minutes later ask you what the hell it was. I got a $10 bill here. I'm going to slip it under my keyboard on the computer. At the end of the session, if you can remember it's there, it's yours. And they have a 65 score as a standard score. I have a damn good chance of keeping that $10 bill. That score is terrible. That's a demented level of function. And they ended up as a normal score, but they started out like toast, and but across the board, big improvement across the board.
Everybody, the pizza ovens are off. We're putting the chairs on the tables. We're wiping everything down. Restaurants closing up. If we miss something, email pete@neuronoodle.com. Pete@neuronoodle.com. I'll take your question. We do a show tomorrow with Dr. Marie and Jay Gunkelman, and we talk about what we talked about in this show, and we can get it to your question there. Just send it over there. Joshua Moore, could you give us a quick update? Number one, you're feeling better, thank goodness. Yeah. And where can people, if they're in Washington or Northern Oregon, where can they go to check you out?
Alternative behavioral therapy. I'm happy to consult if people want to do some consulting. I like to work with people locally. If you need help connecting with somebody distance-wise, I'm also happy to volunteer and help you find somebody locally. For people who are learning, I'm trying to develop some coursework, and we just released an additional module on frontal lobe disturbances, and I'm happy with it. And we're going to keep trucking away and keep building new modules until we get them all done, and then we're going to add a few workshops on neuromarkers and software. And it's going to be a love project that's going to take at least a year. So. Mm-hmm. So you can look that up at qegcourses.com, or alternative behavioral therapy can be found at neurofeedbackcare.com.
Anthony Ramos, I'm jonesing for some tech chat. Got any places I can go?
Just find us on Facebook, and
what's the name of it?
Yeah, there's the usual suspects: Brainmaster, Science and Technology Discoveries, Neurofeedback Exchange, Neurofeedback Community. So thank you.
And for the Festival of Nerds in October, SusanCity.com, SusanSummit.com.
How funny.
As we go forward, there's 2 themes for this coming year. One of them is based around this whole Godfather foolishness.
Oh, cool.
And the other one is the gift of neurodivergence. And we have Theresia Stockel-Drax, who's a psychiatrist, MD, PhD, out of Munich, coming over. She is an original member of the Outliers Club, which is a story that you probably don't need to hear online. But we go back in many years, and she identified hyper mirroring in children that are excessively giving to other kids. They'll help others to their fault, to themselves even. And they have a hyper mirroring, and it's the same mirror neuron system as the mu. Anyway, she has identified that I won't say how many years ago, because she's but she's that year Dirk and I and Nick Douglas did a lecture in Cancun. So,
Joshua Moore, Jake Gunkelman, Anthony Ramos, thank you for hanging, and all of the new people that showed up. Kafamakika, Karuta Tina, Tori Shah, Joshua Moore, who's that? Radar, Hita, Tony. Oh, that's you. Lynn's brain. Oh my goodness, it just goes on. I'm an artichoke.
Yeah.
Thanks all for hanging. And we won't be here next week, and I'm going to post a schedule now that we sort of got a little system here after a year. People want to know when we're going to be here, because it's always been the premise that it's just showing up at the bar talking neuro nerd stuff, but now we got a schedule and the bartender's actually showing up. Everybody have a good night. Jay, see you in a few hours.
Catch you in the morning.
Thank you. Happy holidays if we don't see you.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Ho, ho, ho.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.